Welcome, viewers. Today on Readers and Writers, we will be exploring the complex and challenging craft of script writing. Screenwriting and script writing is the blueprint for all film and scripted TV shows that you watch. Someone had to create the content, and in this case, the show for Readers and Writers has content, and that was mostly done by me and my featured guest sitting next to me. One of the many challenges of script writing is the ability to balance the elements of the story being told with the physical and monetary constraints of production. The story will take place on a stage with real actors. It has to stay within budget and get done in a timely manner, frequently with deadlines for weekly episodes. Before the story ever gets to the stage, the screenwriter must choose a topic that captures the imagination of the producers and attracts the right talent. Most importantly, it must be well received by viewers and, in the best case, create a buzz. My guest today is Gene Hamilton, former actor and screenwriter. Gene has lived a full life of adventure and world travel. He is the successful author of Smoke Jokes and has produced a promotional video for that book. He has written several screenplays and proves that age is no barrier to creativity. I am honored to have him with us today. Welcome, Gene.
Thank you.
So I understand you began to get an understanding of screenwriting when you were given the job of scriptwriter by Howard G. Minsky, best known as the producer of the blockbuster Love Story in 1970. Can you tell me how that happened, what it was like?
Yeah, he was a William Morris agency for actors. And the script it was a screenplay, and it was sent to him. He took a liking to it, and he used to work for Paramount. They didn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. So he loved it enough, and he said, I'll do it. He put up his own money, and Ryan O'Neal, that starred in it, only got $25,000. The film ultimately did $178 million.
Wow.
And so he was begging, borrowing, putting all his money. He was ready to retire. He was already 60 years old. So the way I came upon him, which got me into an inner circle, was my friend was an international distributor of films, which accounts for half the profit of a movie, half in America, half around the world. And so Howard wanted to get in touch to make sure he can get his money back, and he came to my friend, Ed Berger, and so he came to Ed, and he also said, you know, I don't have enough money to pay Francis Lay for the music. And he won't release it to me unless I come with my wife to France, to his parents' little vineyard, and he'll play it for me. And so I had to sell him an apartment for him, so he had the money to get that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the film complete without music.
Yes.
And so he came back and he said, well, the music is great. He says, we got there and we're knee to knee with Francis Lay's parents, and he comes out with a little concertina and he plays the theme to Love Story. And we're all sitting there crying and going, this is going to be Academy Award. And it did win best score.
Yes. And then after that, you got a job being a screen reader. And what is a screen reader?
Yeah. Well, when you have a success like that, there's 20,000 screenplays a year written that go nowhere. Because unless agents that represent writers won't look at them, they're afraid of plagiarism lawsuits. And so they either go in the trash can or they send them to me. They gave me a coffin filled with them. He said, see if there's anything in here that we'd like to produce. And then at the same time, I was pitching my own screenplay ideas. And so I would get, if I didn't get past the first 10 pages, I'd toss them. And I mean, I had hundreds that I was reading.
So what would capture you in the first 10 pages? What were you looking for?
a grabber, something that really gets your interest. I mean, even the one I wrote, Somersault, I made sure I did something interesting. So the opening scene was a baby being born underwater.
Oh.
You know, and that had to grab you.
Yes.
And so that was part of it. And then, so then he said, okay, you know, I'm just going to go to Mexico with my son. We're going to do a film. And
you're talking about Minsky?
Minsky, and then he says, and then we'll work on your projects. We had 3 going. He falls off a horse in Mexico, breaks his shoulder. He already made $50 million.
And love story.
Yeah, well, the book, he turned it into a book. That was a bestseller. The music made a phenomenal amount of money. The movie made an incredible amount of money. And so he said, you know what? I'm getting a little old here. He went to Palm Springs, and I think he spent the rest of his life in Florida.
Yep, yeah, until age 94, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So a great script, to kind of summarize, is able to draw the audience in and keep them invested in a story and its characters. And they need to do that in the first few minutes of the script. This sounds similar to a book, but is script writing in a book the same thing?
No, actually, it's interesting because on average, it runs 1 page a minute, and a movie runs 90 minutes. So it can be very small. And so anyway, the one I was mentioning earlier today, Jerzy Kosinski's little book, was only 118 pages. Peter Sellers saw it, loved it, and they made the movie Being There. And so, but on an average, the scripts can't go anywhere without an agent.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. So let's think about what you see when you're watching a film or a scripted show. First of all, it must be visually interesting. Next, it must be provide a setting, and that includes describing in the script what movement will occur, what props will be there, and the dialogue for the actors. Now, the actors must show rather than tell the internal workings of the characters, what they are thinking, feeling, what motivates them. In a book, on the other hand, you can simply read that stuff, the characters' thoughts, the environment, anything that they have that's interesting about the book. So it really becomes the scriptwriter's job to provide the details that are necessary to enable the story to happen in real time, in a real space, with real characters on a stage. Directors and actors work closely with the script. So Jean, you had some almost successes, as you mentioned, Barefoot Detective, which may have inspired The Pet Detective. And I'm wondering if we could put up a picture of the actor you enlisted for the main character. Looks a lot like Jim Carrey.
Yeah, that was Tim Rooney, and Tim's father was Mickey Rooney. But regarding your script, too, I was going to interject this. It has to have exposition, complication, denouement. So
what's the last one? Denouement?
Yeah, that's where you wrap it all up and everybody's happy, and so the exposition, it's dramatic because it shows the action right from the beginning. Who's involved? Somebody fell off a building, whatever. The complication, and so now you expose all the characters involved. The complication is the guy's going to die from the fall, and all his kids are going to starve to death, whatever. And then the denouement, they go, you know what, though? He didn't die. He got a big insurance policy, and everybody's going to live happily ever after. So that really puts it in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah.
So aspiring writers should remember those 3 things.
Yeah, so with the Barefoot Detective, though, it was something that may or may not have been kind of lifted, the idea. So how would you help people protect their writing? What are some suggestions for screenwriters?
Yeah, you're not going to get an agent to represent you since you're new. You know, if you're George Clooney or something, you know, you'll have a good chance. But so basic ways, the Writers Guild of America will accept new screenplays. You pay them to register them. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have the money to pay them, it's not expensive. You put your script in an envelope, take it to the post office, register, mail it to yourself. Mm-hmm. And keep it sealed and have them stamp the lip on it so that they know it's never been opened. Now, if somebody plagiarizes you, if you're in a court of law, you can pull that out.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I know of other plagiarism cases that have gone to court, but they rarely win. I won't name any names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
We don't want to get sued.
No, no. So if somebody does pick up your script, what happens next?
Okay, yeah. So now, let's say you're a writer's agent. Now you have a writer's agent, which nobody else has. The other 20,000 writers don't have one. And they take it, he takes it to the studio, and the studio goes, yeah, we like this. So we're going to produce this one. And they send it to a service called breakdown service. My agent had the breakdown service, and what they do is they break down all the characters and what they're going to be doing. And then they send it out to actors' agents that go, you know what, you got this actor, maybe he would like to play this part. So it's going down this chain of command. Mm-hmm. And then they go, yes, George Clooney wants to play this part, and he's available during that time, so why don't we have him audition for it? Mm-hmm. So he goes back to the studio, auditions for it, which he probably wouldn't have to.
Yes, yeah, right, not George Clooney.
And so then they produce it, film it, and everything else.
Mm-hmm. So is it ever possible to have an actor promote your script?
Very rarely, unless the term is called bankable. Mm-hmm. And if they're interested, I mentioned one time to you that this was an unusual situation. This writer said, you know what, or producer, he says, I need $10 million. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get 20 stars, Robert Redford, John Wayne, blah, 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 and I'm going to pay them all to do a little cameo. Mm-hmm. 1 minute, couple of lines, mm-hmm. That's it. And it's called A Bridge Too Far. Mm-hmm. And he got the money because he couldn't miss. He had 20 bankable actors, mm-hmm. and people would go to see this thing even if it was just a clip.
Uh-huh. Yeah, in fact, I've seen movies like that where there's a lot of bankable actors, and I thought, not knowing what you just told us, that it was because it was kind of a get-together of actors, and they were like, just say, well, you know, Tony's doing it, why don't we all do it? Exactly. But that makes more sense. Yeah. That makes more sense.
I had just cut in.
Sure.
I had a friend, Susan Strasberg, and even though her father was Lee Strasberg, the famous teacher, she wasn't that bankable, and so she and Tony Curtis had made a movie. It was, I thought it was horrible. They had a creature, a midget, growing out of her back, and she had to do topless scenes.
that must have been bankable.
Well, so she made some money.
Yeah.
And but I don't think the film went anywhere. But if you ever want to get scared, watch Tony Curtis with Susan Strasberg.
And you know, we talked about nepotism and who is their daughter, but Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah. Correct? So it still comes down to who you know, whether in publishing or getting a book published. And on that topic of nepotism, in the spirit of full disclosure, Gene is my half cousin.
Which half would that be?
Yeah, the better half. So anything else you want to talk about in terms of nepotism or that inner circle?
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, mm-hmm. if you are part of the circle. Mm-hmm. And it follows with television, publishing, acting. You know, that you had shown me 40 years ago, they excluded, they wrote that in the New York Times article about nepotism. 95% of the stars we knew at that time knew somebody or related. I think they finally got down. Gene Hackman was like the only guy
that didn't know anybody. Yeah.
And then he was sharing a room with Dustin Hoffman, and that helped him get, from then on, he just took off.
Well, and then now, something that levels the playing field is online opportunities to list your screenplay. It somewhat levels the playing field. And there are several sites which I will list. One is called The Blacklist, not the TV series, IMDb Pro, Ink Tip, and the International Screenwriters Association. Now, at the time of this taping, the Writers Guild of America is on strike. What are your thoughts, Gene?
Yeah, I think, well, you know, the reason that the studios make so much money is because, you know, if you're watching a football game, they're paying $2 million a minute for the ad. Okay, the same thing, commercials. They're probably not too thrilled because with DVRs, people can race through the commercials, and they're paying a lot of money for that. But but the writers are feeding those lines, those situations, and they'd have nothing to shoot. A person on Tonight Show, they'd be standing there like this, and there'd be no words coming out.
If it wasn't for the writers.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so,
if it wasn't for the writers.
Yeah, and they also have a complaint that sometimes they'll run something 1 million times and they won't get a residual.
Got
I
it.
have one quick one I'd like to tell you about.
Sure, please.
So James MacArthur, who did Hawaii Five-0 back in the day with Jack Lord, he said, hey, Gene, you know, because I used to play golf with him, he said, they want somebody to do this Hawaii Medical Association spokesman ad, and they're going to pay $150. I said, sure. I went down there. I did the ad. He didn't do it because the union wasn't in Hawaii yet. I was a member of 3 unions, but my union wasn't there. Long story short, it ran 18 years.
Ooh.
And it was like the portrait of Dorian Gray. I'd come back to Hawaii and they go, geez, Gene, you look like poop. and I said, why? Why are you saying that? I put on a couple of pounds. He said, I just saw your ad on the TV.
Oh, no, it's still running after all the...
18 years old.
And no residuals.
No residuals.
Oh, my goodness.
So I made $150. That's why these writers are going, hey, you know, I don't get to write all brilliant stuff all the time. So when I do, and you keep running it,
yes,
I want something back on it.
Yes.
That's all. There's thousands of them, too. You saw them picketing, didn't you?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And another factor I was thinking about that may contribute is artificial intelligence. I mean, because it's known as AI, and it's the ability to create text, pictures without human intervention. In fact, part of this show I generated by using AI. I just typed in a question that said, what are the things that are needed to write a screenplay? And if we get a chance, we'll put that up. I'm not going to go through it. It's steps 1 through 5, but all generated by artificial intelligence.
I was going to add to that. Why I was so impressed with Jerzy Kosinski producing Being There. It's not just having a screenplay or a story or whatever. He did something which is totally unique. And his character, which Peter Sellers plays in Being There, was totally stupid. But people would go, they'd look at him and they projected what they thought he was going to say or what he was or whatever. He did nothing. And by the end of the movie, they wanted him to be the president, which is probably...
Let's not go there.
It's like today.
Yeah. Let's not go there. Anyway, well, thank you, Gene. Thank you for being here. And I would love to hear from you, my viewers. If you have questions or comments or know someone who would be suitable for the show, please reach out to me at readersandwriterstv6@gmail.com. And remember, Readers and Writers is on every Monday at 10:30 a.m. and Thursday at 4:30 p.m. every week. New episodes come out every month. Thank you very much.